Last episode, we left ancient Greece with Aristotle. Brilliant, influential. The man who built the framework Western economics still argues inside. But while Aristotle was writing about household management and the dangers of too much wealth, 2,500 miles to the east, on the Indian subcontinent, another man was writing something far more practical. A handbook for running an empire. A manual on taxation, espionage, trade regulation, and statecraft so detailed and so ruthless that when Europeans first read it in the 20th century, they were stunned. His name was Kautilya, and his book was the Arthashastra. Kautilya, also called Chanakya, lived around 300 BCE. He was a Brahmin scholar from the kingdom of Magadha in northern India. According to legend, he was insulted at the court of the Nanda dynasty, swore revenge, and then engineered the rise of a young protege named Chandragupta Maurya. Chandragupta would go on to found the Maurya Empire, the first empire to unify most of the Indian subcontinent. Kautilya was the architect behind him, his chief minister, his chancellor of the exchequer, his spymaster. And while running an empire, Kautilya wrote a book, the Arthashastra. The title means Treatise on Artha, and Artha in Sanskrit means wealth, prosperity, material well-being. It is a manual of government, roughly 15 volumes long, hundreds of pages, and it covers everything: tax rates, trade tariffs, price controls, wage policies, mining regulations, forest management, espionage networks, diplomatic strategy, military finance, even how to run brothels. There is nothing else like it in the ancient world. Now here is the strange part. The Arthashastra was lost, completely. For nearly 2,000 years, it was a name in old Sanskrit references, but no one had a copy. Then in 1905, a Tamil scholar named Rudrapatna Shamasastri walked into a Mysore library, opened a bundle of palm leaf manuscripts, and realized he was holding the lost text. Word spread. Indian scholars were ecstatic, and Western economists, when they finally read it, had to face an uncomfortable truth. India had a comprehensive theory of state economics, 1900 years before Adam Smith. Start with taxation. Kautilya was obsessive about tax design. He set rates by industry. Agriculture, he wrote, should be taxed at 1/6 of the harvest. Mining at 1/2, with the state taking the larger share because mining used royal land. Foreign trade at 20%. Luxury goods at higher rates. Necessities at lower rates. He understood, 1,500 years before Adam Smith would write about it, that taxes should match the ability to pay, and that taxing necessities crushed the poor, while taxing luxuries barely touched them. He also understood, again much earlier than Europe, that excessive taxation destroys the tax base. Kautilya warned that a king who squeezed his subjects too hard would impoverish them, and an impoverished population pays no taxes at all. The right strategy, he wrote, was to tax like a beekeeper takes honey. Just enough to satisfy the keeper, never enough to harm the hive. This is the same insight Ibn Khaldun would articulate 1,600 years later, and Arthur Laffer would popularize in the 1970s. Kautilya regulated prices the way a modern central planner would. He believed merchants would always try to charge as much as the market allowed, and he thought this was sometimes legitimate and sometimes predatory. So he installed market inspectors who set fair prices for essential goods. The fair price, in his system, was cost of production plus a reasonable margin. About 5% for domestic goods, 10% for imported ones. Prices above this were illegal. Below this, the merchant could not survive. He had a philosophy about money. The Mauryan Empire used silver, copper, and gold coinage. Kautilya specified the exact weights and purity standards. He created a state mint with strict quality controls, and he prescribed gruesome punishments for counterfeiters. Why? Because Kautilya understood, with shocking clarity, that the integrity of the currency was the foundation of trust in the state itself. Debase the coin, and you debase the kingdom. Now we get to the part that horrified 20th century Western readers. Espionage. Kautilya devotes huge sections of the Arthashastra to spy networks. Agents disguised as merchants. Agents disguised as ascetics. Agents disguised as students. Agents disguised as prostitutes. He describes in detail how to infiltrate rival courts, how to corrupt enemy officials, how to assassinate threatening rivals using slow poisons or staged accidents. The Arthashastra is the original Machiavelli, written 1800 years before Machiavelli was born. But Kautilya did not see these tactics as evil. He saw them as the painful arithmetic of preserving order. Without the state, he argued, life descends into what he called Matsya-Nyaya, the law of the fishes. The big eat the small. The strong devour the weak. The role of the king, in Kautilya's vision, was to be ruthless enough to prevent that chaos. A weak king was not virtuous. A weak king was a catastrophe waiting to happen. He had remarkably modern views on economic development. He encouraged the building of irrigation canals. He subsidized the clearing of new land for agriculture. He set up royal storehouses for famine relief, just like ancient Egypt. He regulated the textile industry to ensure quality. He promoted forest conservation, designating royal forests where elephants and timber were protected. He even regulated alcohol production, recognizing it as a major source of state revenue and potential disorder. Kautilya understood international trade. He encouraged caravans across the Hindu Kush into Persia and Central Asia. He encouraged sea trade with what is now Sri Lanka and Southeast Asia. He set differential tariffs to protect Indian craftsmen from foreign competition, while letting raw materials flow in cheaply. He understood, in essence, the logic of strategic trade policy. He was a mercantilist before mercantilism existed as a word. He even had a labor theory of value, of sorts. He wrote that the value of a finished product depends on the labor that went into making it, plus the cost of materials, plus a fair profit. He set wages by skill level. Skilled craftsmen earned more. Unskilled laborers earned less. He prescribed minimum wages for state employees. He prescribed protections for workers who were injured on the job. He even prescribed pensions for the families of soldiers killed in battle. So why is Kautilya not a household name? 2 reasons. First, the manuscript was lost for 2 millennia. By the time it resurfaced in 1905, the Western canon of economic thought was already established, and no one wanted to rewrite the textbooks. Second, Kautilya is uncomfortable. His vision of statecraft is brutally pragmatic. He has no romance about freedom or natural rights. He is more like a hard-headed technocrat than a philosopher. That made him easy to ignore and easy to misread. But read carefully. The Arthashastra is one of the most sophisticated economic documents of the ancient world. It is a complete system: public finance, regulation, trade policy, monetary integrity, labor markets, infrastructure, all integrated. There is nothing like it in Greek or Roman literature. There would be nothing like it in Europe until the 17th century. India, in 300 BCE, had built a theoretical machine for running an empire that Europe would not match for 2,000 years. Next episode, we travel west again, this time to the Mediterranean, to the empire that ruled it, to Rome, to the lawyers and jurists who built the legal foundations of property, contract, and commerce that the entire modern Western economy still rests on. Next time, Rome, the economics of empire.